I'm going to give you a tip, and if you can perfect this, it is going to absolutely transform your off-road driving. There's two principles off-road that you need to balance. You get the balance right and it is amazing where a four-wheel drive vehicle can go. The first thing is traction. At any given moment in time, your tyres have a given amount of traction. The second thing is momentum. At any given time, your vehicle will have a certain amount of momentum. It could be a little bit or it could be a lot. So let's just talk about traction. Any tyre on any surface is going to have a certain amount of traction. That's kind of obvious. What happens when you come up to an obstacle like this one, which we're going to drive in a moment, is if you're just using traction, so you're traveling really, really slow, your vehicle's in first gear, low range, at idle, if you're automatic, you're on the brakes, and you crawl up to this obstacle as slow as you can. You're effectively trying to climb the obstacle with traction alone. The opposite of that is to come at the obstacle with momentum, and lots of it. And what happens then is you compromise your traction and you can lose your traction because the wheels and tyres bounce off the obstacle. They don't get traction in air, or they unload and become very light on the surface, and so they lose traction because of that. So the balance point is having the traction and having just enough momentum that you maintain maximum traction with the momentum. Combine those two elements and you're going to be amazed how far your four-wheel drive can go. This is where the skill comes into it, and one of the elements I love about four-wheel driving is having skills that allow me to do really cool drives with my four-wheel drives. And every vehicle, every driver, every obstacle will require a different mix of those elements. And that's why four-wheel driving is so much fun, because I can watch a mate in his GQ Patrol on a lift and 35s and twin lockers and winches and all the gear on it. I can watch him do a drive and go, wow, that was awesome. You got that mix and made it just perfect, and you did the obstacle. And on the flip side, I could turn up in my little Bandera here and completely balls it up because I get the mix wrong. So let's get into this now. Now, how have I got the vehicle set up at the moment? Well, I've got the Maxxis Razor mud tyres on there, 33, 12.5, 16-inch tyres. I've aired them down to around about 12 PSI on all four tyres, and I'm going to put both diff locks in. So front and rear diff lock are going to be in. So all four tyres are going to be driving, and I'm going to maintain that through this full demonstration. And I'm doing that so that we can kind of keep this pure to the principles I'm trying to show you. The other thing I'm not going to do is use, to the best of my ability, other driving techniques. So I'm just going to follow the track as we see it here and try and drive that same line each time, as opposed to using techniques like turning lock to lock in the steering, looking for traction, as in looking for another place I can pick a different line. So I'm going to try and keep this as pure as I can to using traction and momentum. So the first thing I'm going to do is try and drive this with traction only. After we've done that, we're then going to try it with the momentum, but we're going to do it with too much momentum, and we're going to see what happens. And then we're going to do it just right, and it's going to be perfect. It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be beautiful. You're going to love it. Let's get into this, eh? So here we go. I'm going to go as slow as I can. So we're just using traction, okay? So here we go. And there we go. So that's traction. There's no momentum at the moment. I'm just purely trying to get up here on traction. It's not going to happen. I can sit here all day. I'm not steering the wheel. I'm just trying to use traction. So let's get out of this. That didn't work. Okay, now we're going to come in, and I'm going to be too aggressive with the momentum. So momentum is like charging up a battery. So before I get to the obstacle, I'm accelerating, that's like charging up the battery. Then when I get to the obstacle, I've got all of that power or energy that's stored up in the vehicle's mass to get me up the obstacle. But we'll see what happens here, but I suspect we're going to either get wheels off the ground, we may get up the obstacle, but it'll be very uncontrolled and a bit sketchy. Let's see what happens. So now we're coming in a bit too fast. Oh, man. Oh, I'm just beating on my car. Like, okay, I got up, but was it good? I didn't enjoy it. I didn't feel like I was using skill. Now, you know, that shows you at times, you know, that might be the amount of momentum you need. Other times you're going to get wheels off the ground, especially in this, I can get wheelies and have both front wheels off the ground. So it's not a refined and technical drive. Let's do this drive correctly. So here we go. So once the front gets up, that's when I'll feed the power. And notice I backed off the power. As soon as I knew I was up, I just backed off. And we only just had enough momentum to get over the obstacle, as opposed to some monstrous great amount of energy in there. And that's the balance that we're looking for, is just having enough momentum to do the job, as opposed to an awful amount that just it damages our vehicles, it damages our tracks, and it does run the risk of rollovers and other nasties, especially when you're pushing the limits like on this track here. All right, guys, look, I hope that's been helpful. What you can do now is go out and practice that technique. Learn by coming up to an obstacle, use traction. Don't get up the obstacle, then increase a little bit of momentum, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, and slowly build up to where you start to get familiar with the amount of momentum your vehicle's going to require to get up the obstacle. And like you saw me doing there, bring the front of the vehicle up over the rock step or the obstacle, and then feed the power for the back to pop up, because your back will get pulled up by the front end. Anyway, guys, I hope that's been helpful. I'd love you to comment down below what you think about that and whether that's helpful information. I just want your thoughts. Give us feedback. Give us your thoughts. I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails.